Hey, how's it going?
I've never met your baby.
Oh, say hi. Say hi, Nicole.
Hi.
We just had a very traumatic experience.
Oh, no.
Just involved pooping, which is apparently a learned skill, and it's always very scary, and he cries every time. Like, don't worry. Here all the time.
I didn't realize it was a unknown thing for babies.
Who knew? You know?
I babysat the same kid from the time she was 1 until she was 5, I think.
Oh.
But I guess I missed that very early learning about.
I feel like you got the best part of her. You know?
I did, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, won't lie.
Well, give people another minute.
Hi, people.
Hello. This session it's going to be way better than the last session, right? It's in between the sessions. All of us, God bless you.
Oh, another one.
Have had 3 tequila shots,
Yeah.
so it's going to be it's going to be bananas. Okay, that's what it's going to be. Okay.
We're warmed up
How
now.
often do you say that in your meetings? Like, it's bananas, guys.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I feel like most of the time we have some kind of bad dad joke in most of our internal meetings, but mostly in the Zoom chat.
I think it's like your first 3 months as a new employee. You think like, oh, I've got all the funniest banana jokes, and then you quickly learn like they've all been said. But it's worth the effort still.
Yeah, I like it. You got to try.
Yeah.
Cool.
I've learned that my dog has learned me saying bye or like goodbye means I'm done a call and he should come in and bug me. Like, he literally got up the moment I said, okay, bye.
That's awesome.
Zoom trained.
No.
He knows you're done for the day, or that meeting at least.
Yeah, he always thinks I'm done for the day.
Cool. Let's get this party started. So, let's see. I feel like I introed both of you last time. I can do it again unless you want to, spice up your intros a little bit. You're welcome to. Or I can do it again. No big deal.
I think you killed it.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I love hearing you talk about me.
I'm going to switch it up, though. I'm going to do Nicole first. So for everyone here who was not here in the last session, which unless you just loved the last session, you're here again, which I don't know if you can even do that, but anything is possible. Basically, my name is Kara Zucker. I'm a product manager, and I work at a company called Kinzu, which is a kid tech startup that focuses on a kid messenger. And I've been there a few months, and I'm relatively new to PM, but very excited to talk about Bananatag today and how they approach product. With me here today is 2 of the members of their product team who are just fabulous. I know, they're just wonderful. And this is Nicole. Nicole is a seasoned digital product professional who is passionate about team communication, user experience, and understanding the influence of surrounding systems. She brings over 10 years of experience in both in-house and digital product agencies, where she has helped form teams and operational processes. So she's pretty badass. And then we have Curtis, who is also awesome. He is born and raised in Kelowna, so he's actually calling from Kelowna, which is awesome. And he's been in tech for about 7 years, worked as a project manager, a scrum master, a product manager, a product owner, and customer success. He's been at Bananatag for about 2.5 years, and he loves riding his bike, especially in flip-flops and breweries. So we got some all-stars right here. This is my assistant who decided to join the call. He has 0 product experience, but is the best product I've ever shipped so far. So without further ado, let's get started. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about Bananatag?
Alrighty. So Banana.
If anyone has any questions, I guarantee you they will be much more interesting than my questions. So just toss them in the chat, throw them in, ask Curtis his favorite brewery, ask Nicole about the dog and her background, anything you want. this is an open forum. So go ahead.
We much prefer the interruptions, and so that we don't have to talk at you guys the whole time. But yeah, what is Bananatag? I mean, this visual should tell you everything, obviously, but Bananatag is a tool to create, send, and measure email communications. That's kind of its birth. It started as a sales tool, very similar to like a MailChimp, where you could send out emails, engaging emails, target your employees, get measurement on who opens it, who clicks it. So you know who has and who hasn't opened your email. The founders quickly pivoted from a sales tool into an internal comms tool. So same use case and function, but instead of trying to sell people things and track their emails so you can follow up with them to sell stuff, it's more for your internal team. So you've got a large company, you want to send out CEO communications, you want to know if people are reading it, you want to see if you can make it more engaging, see if it's just flat out not being read. All that good stuff. And I specifically said the birth of Bananatag was email, but as you'll probably learn as we go through this project, we are keeping with the times, and we are going multi-channel with SMS, chat, MS Teams, Slack, all those fun channels.
Awesome. Well, thank you for explaining a little bit more about the company and what you do. I think you have this awesome slide where it shows your whole product team with all of your profile photos. There's sweatshirts involved. Can you tell me a little bit more about like who does what, who makes the coffee, who makes all the shots?
I'm going to say Partho for all of those things, mainly because he's invested in coffee through COVID. He has a very, very amazing coffee setup at home now. But yeah, this is our product team. Partho is our head of product, head of product. Erin's our senior PM, and then there's Curtis, myself, and Andrew. And we all own various, verticals in the user journey for Bananatag. I can talk a little bit about mine, and no, it's not automatic because it's not, Partho just hasn't kept up with the good stuff. So for me, I currently own a couple of parts of our product. Firstly would be the client integrations portion. So as Curtis said, we started out with email tracking. At the very beginning, we had integrations with Lotus Notes, and then Outlook Classic, and then Office 365, and it's evolved into having an extension in Chrome for Gmail. So I am responsible for not just keeping the lights on for that, because we are beholden to third parties who change their policies on a whim sometimes, which may or may not be a current challenge of mine, and making sure that it works and it's on par with our web app platform. So people aren't getting a diminished experience even if they're not necessarily using our web app. But another exciting part that I get to own is a little bit more into the future and outside of Bananatag, but still, how do we bring them back in, is with our external APIs and our platform strategy. So I get to think about how Bananatag may or may not integrate with different tools, the data structures that we'll need to think about, and how we can help bring our customers into Bananatag as simple as possible, without having to, necessarily do a lot of CSVs or manual processes. How do we automate their life so that they can focus on what matters, like sending out better communications? That's me. Curtis?
Cool. Yeah, Philip, good comment about APIs, and funny story. That's why we hired Nicole, because an external API was on our roadmap, and I was like, I'm terrified of that. You should probably hire more people. I used to have Nicole's team when we were a smaller crew. I was kind of standing alone in the middle there, actually. So I was managing all of our product teams, not very well and not without much stress, but we've thankfully added bodies. And so now my focus is, as I mentioned, we kind of create those engaging emails. It's a drag and drop builder to allow you to add videos, images, cool text, colors, all the fun stuff, surveys. I manage the team that's in charge of that right now. So that's that's my whole world. It's currently it's the cornerstone of our product kind of from day one. So it's like it's the stickiest part of our product right now, which is really cool and exciting. And now, like I mentioned, we're going through all these different send channels, so it's going to have to morph and evolve to adapt to not just being plain old email anymore.
Great to hear. So I'm curious, what kind of skills or, capabilities do you feel like you have on your PM team? Now that you've kind of seen like the whole suite of Bananatag's product team, what do you feel like kind of fits people together? You already kind of elaborated on Nicole's experience, which is awesome. And I know Curtis, your background has been a little bit all over the place, which is great, but I'm curious like how things fit together and what makes that really important.
For sure. I'll keep talking, Nicole. Yeah, you kind of mentioned my path to become a PM, and I guess there probably isn't a very traditional path in general to become a PM, but mine was very customer focused. And I really appreciated that path, and I think all PMs need to be customer focused, but like really being able to understand your customers' needs and understand the use cases and not just looking at a feature and like how it works and how cool it could be, but like how people are actually going to end up using it and how it improves the experience and adds value to your product. So I'll repeat my answer to you from last time. I stole this answer from Manish Gupta, CPO at Uber. I thought he answered this question beautifully when asked. His 3 kind of summary points was a good PM or a good PO has high energy and genuine curiosity for your product, exemplary communication skills, and a low ego and excellent collaboration skills. Really love this idea as kind of being that center to your team, but empowering others. And at the end of the day, we're not the folks building things. We need to lean on our design and our tech teams to do that. So like bringing the best out of them. I know, Nicole, you added a really good point to this last time too, being that person to tell the story, not only to like your customer facing team and your end users of why this has value and why it's important, but also to get your team on board. Like, this is really cool. This is going to benefit the company for XYZ, and getting them invested and bought into that feature or project so you can produce something incredible.
That's awesome. And I'm curious, in our last session, we talked a little bit about how both of you collaborate a lot with other people at Bananatag. Can you elaborate for this group a little bit more about how you do that and who you interface with and which teams are supported by who?
Yeah, definitely. Handy dandy slide to save us here. So with our product team specifically, we all have a Scrum Master that we share across our teams. And then we have a designer, a QA, and 3 to 5 developers. All of us roll up to 3 separate people. So the head of product would be Partho, product design manager, who is Nick. He is here today, but maybe not in our session again this time. And then an engineering manager as well. And then with that, there's also a director of engineering that kind of thinks about the more holistic strategy of our product from an engineering standpoint and helps provide that guidance with the teams if they need it on the technical level. What's a good way to talk about our collaboration in our company, Curtis?
Zoom.
Zoom.
One word.
Yeah, I guess like one of the things we have the concept of bunches, which isn't, we need more banana jokes. And yes, there are a lot of banana jokes. So we create bunches whenever we notice that there is a gap that needs to be filled, but it also does touch on many teams and not just a single team. So we create bunches, and we all get our names. Across the different teams, we form various, depending on what we need, like we form GTM groups. So again, that touches on multiple teams, and try to work on how we can have the most visibility and to complete whatever task or whatever initiative we're trying to set forth.
That makes sense. Philip, I'm going to get to your question in just a second, but thank you for it in there. In terms of you talked about before a little bit how you learn about customers, and specifically with all these different teams and how they're supported, making sure that they deliver a feature or experience that is what customers really want and what the users you work with. How do you really make sure you're giving them what they need?
For sure. We have a role within Bananatag. It's called our customer needs specialist. It's the first role I had at Bananatag, and it's now occupied by our good friend Andy. We really should have invited him to this because we spent 2 meetings praising him. But yeah, Bananatag, like we use user voice as kind of our customer portal to hear their voices and give them a space to submit ideas and vote on existing ideas. We listen to gong recordings with specific taggings for different topics so that we can review calls and kind of understand firsthand what users are saying, customers are saying. Tons of data through Pendo, and then of course Salesforce and Jira is kind of ropes everything together so we can connect bugs or ideas to specific customers and link up all the value. But at the heart of all that is our customer needs specialist, Andy. So he's the person that day-to-day lives in these tools and kind of manages all that feedback. And then he's able to roll it up for us as PMs and kind of be like, here's the trends, here are the hot button topics right now, here's what you guys should care about. So we can always have a pulse at least a high level. And then, of course, we can choose to dive in. Like we have access to all these tools, or we can say, hey, Andy, like I'm really concerned about that problem. Like let's target that and dive in. So yeah, I guess the answer is we have a bunch of tools to provide that information, but we lean really heavily on this one role to kind of connect us deeply to that data and give us some trend analytics for the product.
Great. Well, with you too, I think I'll touch on the questions in the chat briefly, and then we can always come back.
Sure.
So Philip had asked about the different OKRs in terms of Bananatag for product managers. So Grace had followed up clarifying that, you know, for OKRs in terms of the product that you're working on, what are some general ones? And then also for you as a product manager, how do you define success in terms of your own performance? Not necessarily like your metrics, but how you see yourself as successful.
Yeah, that's a really good question, mainly because as the product team right now, we are working towards defining OKRs within our team itself. Right now, we don't necessarily have individual product OKRs. More so, we have individual professional OKRs that we set with our managers. But mainly, and Curtis, like, correct me if I'm wrong, we set company level and then department level OKRs within every quarter and then throughout for the year. And then we use those as the guiding principles to work towards. So are we making decisions where we are investigating, doing discovery, and building solutions that actually advance the KRs that have been set out for the company? So it is a little bit more high level than just us as an individual as PMs.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Yeah, Philip, we set company level OKRs, and then within our departments, we'll kind of set OKRs, but they're always meant to be that as any individual within the company, you can target your efforts and like contribute towards these OKRs. Way back when, I know the OKRs were like, this feature will be shipped and this will happen. But like if you were on a team that wasn't involved with that feature, you didn't have goals anymore, and it kind of like felt like you didn't have value. And then we were just focusing on solutions. We weren't focusing on problems. So our leadership has really tried to focus these OKRs around problems, because we might get halfway through a quarter or halfway through the year, whatever the time frame is, and decide like, oh, we can have a solution, or we can solve this problem with a different solution. Like we don't need to tie ourselves to this OKR that, you know, we feel like if we don't hit that exact OKR, we're in hot water. So they've kind of taken a step back and tried to make them a little more holistic and in that approach.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, Philip and Grace, that answers your question. But if you have further clarification, feel free to follow up in the chat. In terms of other questions, we had touched on this before, but how do you really decide what you're going to build? Like, how do you prioritize the features that you're planning on implementing and launching, the working with your team? How do you validate that those are really the best decision for moving the product forward?
Do you want to take this one again, Nicole?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, how do we decide what to build, and how to move forward and all that? So with our PM team, we are focused on making sure that we're actually looking at the right problems, and we actually are validating the problems that we're hearing. Oftentimes, oftentimes we get a lot of salespeople, as usual. Like, we'll be like, "Hey, we have customers asking for this thing. It's a make or break, or it's this and that." And of course, like, we want to investigate those a little bit more, but we have a really good opportunity with Bananatag where we focus on themes and initiatives, not necessarily on the explicit want. So when we think in a little bit higher level of like, what exactly is the problem that they are encountering, rather than the ask, we're able to look at it more holistically. Maybe we can solve it in a different way. Maybe we can solve it. We've already solved it and we just didn't communicate that to the customer. So as PMs, we go through our roadmap quite extensively, where if we've gotten to the point where we're in discovery, we've been able to break stuff down. As you can see, like on the slide, I'm not talking about this really well. On the slide, like, we showcase to our company in our monthly reviews, like where we are at with what problems we're investigating, where we're at with the problems that we actually feel like are the right problems to solve. And then thematically, like, why are we even solving this? Like, what is the story that we're trying to tell with our customers, and how we think we can help them out? And at which point are we iterating? And like, when we iterate, what are we trying to learn? So validating whether or not we're actually going in the right direction, validating if this actually solved it at all. And I think we have some pretty good checks and balances right now to make sure we're not going down the wrong path. But obviously, like, when we think about what our PMs held accountable for in our roles at a company, like, that is one of the things that I personally feel like I would hold myself accountable, right? Like, have I done all my due diligence to the best of my ability to make sure we're going down the correct paths? Bit of a ramble.
Got another great question. Cool. Do you have a validation stage or an MVP where you get a chance to test and explore on the MVP? Some organizations don't dedicate any time to this, as well as iteration to release features versus moving on to the next thing. So I think, Eric, what you're asking, feel free to clarify if you want, is like, do you have, beyond just like QA and testing, but a way to like really explore in an MVP or staging format the features that you're about to release for iteration?
Yeah. This kind of loops back nicely actually to this sort of, as a PM, do we have a personal OKR or a role OKR? It's not an OKR, but the one thing that Partho pushes us for as hard as he can is to build MVPs with no code and get something in front of customers' eyes to validate and get feedback on projects we're working on. So we dedicate a lot of time on that. I think we have a slide that kind of shows that too. Hey, Nicole, but yeah, we try and prototype and get like low effort MVPs out all the time. I think we've done a really good job of putting focus and emphasis on that and celebrating that. I had a project earlier this year where we were able to use like an in-app tool. So it was app queues at the time. We have Pendo guides now, but using that in place of an actual feature to get feedback, and we got like overwhelming feedback, and it like really validated the project. And again, we didn't touch a line of code. So we have all the room in the world as PMs to explore that. It's something that we really want to build into our culture. So yeah, that's really great. And then kind of the second half of that question, iterating on released features, we story map. We try and build in that sort of model where we're creating, the lowest effort release, and then have very specific goals to our releases as we progress past that. We do that and we plan for that. I will maybe say in practice, we do it in practice, but I've certainly felt, especially for my area of the product, is we get out of our MVP or even our R2, and then it's like you said, like on to the next. Like, let's go build that next cool feature, and we kind of forget about, those other, they weren't the highest impact little pieces, but there's still value there. And maybe we're kind of quick to move on to the big shiny things. So there's definitely a balance there.
And I think like oftentimes the latter releases, so past, for example, there's the idea of thinking it's just polish, maybe it's not that important, or like maybe we'll just treat those as bugs rather than part of the actual feature itself. So it's always a fine balance of trying to remember, thinking one more level up, of like, okay, what is the OKR? Like, if we finish the subsequent releases, will that actually help push towards that OKR? And I think like even in my experience right now, we often lose that, right? Like by the time we're thinking about R3 and 4, it's like, well, the next thing actually pushes, like, has much more impact on it. Maybe we can look at this later, and then the backlog grows a little bit longer.
I actually have a follow-up question to that, because I think that's something I struggle with too, and I think a lot of PMs as well, of like the idea of like, okay, we can like prototype this so we can test it. And I think it's really hard to convince not only your leadership team to really having the designer's time to create that, even if it's more of like a hacky prototype. Like, it's hard to get that in front of customers, to get the feedback quickly, to be able to implement it. So definitely, it's wonderful you guys do that. Just a question from Eric as a follow-up. How long do you allow for the overall life cycle influence decision prior to initiating, or is it not known? Do you put limits on how much time is allowed, such as an appetite for a resource? So I think the timeline for the prototype, I believe, to like iterating and getting that feedback, like how long does that usually take?
Good question, and I hate to give the answer, but it depends. I guess I'll kind of back it up a step. Like when we look at our roadmap, one of the things we do is like we call them our Triforce, the TPD. Like as a PM, we have a tech. I don't want to use tech lead, but it's tech lead, and our design individual, and we're like constantly looking down the roadmap and putting a level of effort on our roadmap items. So we should know for everything like within 6 to 12 months, like a rough level of effort. So based on that, we kind of can already envision what this life cycle is going to look like and using those rough percentages. So I guess it would kind of, to answer your question, it's kind of relative to the size of the project or feature we're looking at. But we do have some flux in there, and it's kind of discretionary. Sorry, I don't have a great answer for that, but I understand the challenge and the question.
Yeah, I think like our product lifecycle that we're showing here is definitely a bit of an aspirational one, and with fluctuations between the different verticals that we own. Like as the person who currently owns, platform strategy, like I am just still product discovery, and before that we're not getting into build, we're still in learning. So arguably I'm at like 75% of spread across the first 4, where for something like my client integrations, it's mostly built. There's not a lot of discovery left there, because again, we're beholden to third parties. So it really depends on the maturity level of where your vertical lies, at least for me.
I think thank you for answering that. I think Philip had a really great follow-up question on life cycle, and either Curtis or Nicole, either of you can take that, regarding attempting to have parity between the previous desktop integrations and web app. So if you think of something of making the call to like end a legacy or older product, in terms of focusing your energy elsewhere.
I'll start it and then you can finish, Nicole, because it's like
Sure.
very much Nicole's problem right now and something she's living with every day. Yeah, it's very interesting because, like, as mentioned, Bananatag started as like an email client integration first. The future of Bananatag, though, is web app. So we want to bring the sending into the app. We want that to be like this big central hub for all of your communication. That's the strategy and the dream and the vision. But the large majority, don't quote me on numbers, but I think we're still like 85 or 90% of users are sending through our email clients. So our vision and our drive is to move away from the email client, but such a massive amount of our users are still using that, and as you can imagine, are attached to things they know and love. So it's a very interesting problem for Bananatag. So Nicole, you can explain how you guys are tackling that right now.
Yeah, it's fun. So like when the interesting part about this problem, I guess, is we do have a lot of legacy with Bananatag for sales, and then trying to move into Bananatag for internal communicators as our actual, bread and butter. So it's not only splitting out the the actual users of Bananatag, but also spreading out or separating out internal communicators that use a lot of our legacy stuff. So Lotus Notes, for example, that's still on the plate. I don't even know how old that is. I think that started before even my career started. And then we have like really old integrations that we rely on Internet Explorer 11. So sometimes for some of the things that I'm looking after right now, the decision's made for me. IE 11's dying August 21st, 2021, I believe. So, it has to happen. I have no choice. Our customers will have no choice. And so what that brings us to is really having that communications problem, right? Like, how do we move them over as fast as we can? How do we make sure that when we do move them over, they aren't losing anything? And that's one of our biggest concerns at this moment. It's like, we think it's parity, but from our customer's perspective, maybe it isn't, because the UI has changed, or even the user flow itself is a little bit different, even if we think it's better. Yes, Internet Explorer does need to die, for the love of God. I'll have this recorded. And even then, some of our largest customers are on our legacy integrations. So how do you make sure that they're not churning? And are we planning for white glove customer service to do that? And are there internal security problems that we need to make sure we're thinking about while we work with these customers? Because it is a hard problem to solve, and it lives with me for the next 2 years.
To date, which is good.
Only for one part of it, and then I have another 6 to deal with.
Yikes. I didn't see any other questions in the chat, but I'm curious, is there anything else, Curtis and Nicole? I know you put together all these beautiful slides, but is there anything that you wanted to emphasize about how you do product at Bananatag, or that the audience would like to hear in terms of challenges that you've had, or anything else we forgot to mention?
I think Bananatag has the really interesting position right now where we function a little bit like a startup, a little bit like a large corporation, but mostly trying to be, empowered product teams. As a product manager, I have a lot of autonomy. I have a lot of space to just play and learn and be wrong and, ask questions. But we also have all this legacy that we have to, honor and think about, and trying to help our customers do the best they can in the new world. So, it doesn't really answer your question, but I just think we have a really fun place to work where we have all these opportunities to grow as PMs. And Philip, I really agree. Yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot of power from having Parthley join Bananatag and the change that he's brought.
Sure.
The only thing I'll end it with is Curtis had a great history about unicorns, which is why I'm wearing the headband, Philip, because I want to make sure the video calls don't get too boring. So I'll have him elaborate on unicorns and Bananatag.
This is pre my time at Bananatag, but I've heard the story through the grapevine. It was inspired by a customer. We used to have, like, honestly, a seizure-inducing page that had like unicorns flashing across it, but we call our bugs and defects that customers report fat unicorns. The story is something along the lines of a customer at one point was doing a template build, and she had this like rhinoceros folder of images that she was trying to make a rhinoceros email design. And she had this theory that rhinoceroses were basically just fat unicorns. And we loved it. And that's what our bugs and defects are called now. And we have like a recurring last unicorn meeting. So I said last meeting, as soon as you put that on, all I can think about is bugs, and that's what we call our defects. So. Yes.
Without further ado, I think it's time to move back into the main room. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the best session with Bananatag. It's awesome. We'll see you here next week. Same team, same head outfit. It's going to be awesome. Bring your own drinks, of course. And thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
us.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.